Welcome to It's No Accident, a podcast about the challenges of personal injury and wrongful death law in Florida, one of the nation's most complex legal environments.
You'll hear compelling stories about real cases from our law firm in Tallahassee that will help you better understand your rights and protect yourself from the negligence of others.
I'm Mark Nonni.
And I'm Jaeson Homola.
And this is
It's No Accident. All right, one of the other things we want to talk about today is something that came up recently with a client that I was talking to. It was a client that I had just signed up, and I got the phone call, and he said, I feel like there might be somebody that's sitting outside my house. I feel like I'm seeing the same car over and over again. Mm-hmm. And of course, what he's talking about is thinking that he's being followed by a private investigator, thinking that somebody's watching everything that he's doing, trying to find dirt on him to undercut the claims that he's making in his case. So, have you seen that in your cases? I mean, I think everybody's kind of heard of what a private investigator does. A lot of times we hear about it in divorce cases. Right. But is that something that we see in personal injury cases as well? Sometimes,
yeah. I mean, I would say it comes up more in terms of clients asking me about it. I mean, I assume you would agree too. Like, the majority of the times I'm talking about it or it comes up is because the client's asking me about it and is worried about it. That's happens more so than actually finding out that it's actually happening. Right. And what I normally tell clients is, I mean, number one, it's, certainly the insurance companies are known to do that. No doubt. I mean, auto insurance companies, any of the liability insurance companies, even insurance companies for, stores, if you get hurt at a store. I know in the work comp world, that's a big thing. Yeah. Right, where the insurance companies are hiring a private investigator to trail around the injured person and, video them and trying to catch them doing something, right? And so the way I normally explain it to clients is, most of the time, it's certainly possible that it could be happening. Most of the time in the average case, we'll never know. Right. We'll never find out one way or the other. And so I guess one way to look at it is, I guess if you want to just kind of assume it could be happening, then yeah, I mean, that's one way to think about it is like it could be happening at any time. But the reality is, what I normally tell clients is like, look, as long as they're trying to catch you basically doing something you said you couldn't do, right? Or doing something that the doctor told you not to do, right? If the doctor is telling you your back's messed up, you don't need to be riding a motorcycle, and then they catch you riding a motorcycle on camera, like something like that. And so basically it's like, as long as you're following your doctor's orders and telling the truth, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Let them video you all damn day, who cares?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's not a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, if you're, I've seen situations over the years where that has, not for any of my clients, but it, certainly has, come back to hurt people. Like I remember a case in particular where the guy had said, he had a back injury and in his deposition. So he's under oath, giving sworn testimony and listing off all these things he can't do anymore because of his back injury. And it was just a whole list of things. And then the private investigator ends up catching him out on his sea-doo, And I can't remember if he had specifically said he can't do a sea-doo, but it was something said something along the lines of like, I used to go out on the water a lot in either boats or sea-doos, and I can't do that anymore. Right. Because the waves is too much hurting my back, and they catch him doing that. But as long as you're not lying,
right.
And you're doing what the doctor tells you to do, a lot of times, I think you had a case that went to trial one time where you found out that there was surveillance video and it actually ended up helping you, right? Because
I was actually shocked that they put it into evidence at the trial. But like you said, a lot of times we won't ever find out that there's surveillance because the private investigator will go out and they'll get 2 or 3 days worth of surveillance, but there won't be anything that can be used against the person. So we never really know about it. Nobody ever knows unless you actually see the person out there videoing you. But in the case that you're talking about, it was interesting. They, for some reason, just thought that they wanted to have this evidence in trial, and they were really pushing for it. And, we watched it several times over and over and over again, and we're thinking to ourselves, what is in this video that we're not seeing? Mm-hmm. And it turns out that there wasn't anything that we weren't seeing in the video. They just wanted to argue to the jury. They had video of my client walking up some stairs. They had video of my client carrying her handbag, like her shoulder bag, into her job. They had video of her driving around in her vehicle. She never said that she couldn't do any of those things. Right. And, she wasn't trying to make a claim that she couldn't walk upstairs anymore, that she couldn't carry her handbag anymore. She had a lower back injury, and there was just some things that she couldn't do now that she could do before the collision. None of the stuff that was on the video was any of the things that she said that she couldn't do. And interestingly, in that case, there was an issue in the case, and this is why I can't believe that they put it into evidence. There was an issue in the case as to whether my client had used her blinker because she got rear-ended. And the defendant driver was saying that, well, she was making a left-hand turn and was waiting for oncoming traffic to pass, and she didn't have her blinker on. She was waiting to make the left-hand turn and didn't have her blinker on. Interestingly, and my client obviously was like, I always use my blinker. I use my blinker all the time. Well, I like to believe my clients, but a lot of times, there's sometimes I don't use my blinker,
Sure.
Especially if I'm in a parking lot.
Right.
We have video, they got video of our client that they put in front of the jury after they made the argument that she wasn't using her blinker at the time of the wreck. Video of my client in a parking lot where probably 99% of the population would not be using their blinker, putting on her blinker to go make a left-hand turn in a parking lot where there's no traffic signals or anything. So at the end of the case, and we won in that trial and we got a pretty good verdict. And at the end of the case, I asked the defense attorney, I was like, why did you guys put that into evidence? And she was like, well, we really thought that we were going to be able to make some hay with the fact that she was able to go up the stairs so easy. And I was like, all right, whatever. I think it worked to our benefit. But yeah, it is interesting, the way that defense attorneys and plaintiff's attorneys will see things. But as far as private investigators go, I see them maybe on about 10% of cases, and they could have been hired in more than that. I just never see the information.
Sure, and right, to clarify that point, I mean, the reason for that is typically the only way you're ever going to find out if there's any surveillance video is, number one, you filed a lawsuit, right? So a lot of the cases that we handle or that, just injury cases out there, a lot of them settle without a lawsuit ever getting filed, right? And so if you settle before without ever filing a lawsuit, there's no way you're ever going to find out if there's surveillance video or not, unless the other side just decides to tell you. But the point is, you can't force them to give it to you, right?
Right.
Once you file a lawsuit, even at that point, initially, a lot of times it's not really going to come up. It's usually a situation where you file a lawsuit and you're either going to trial or you're getting really close to trial. And then at that point is when you can finally kind of figure out, okay, is there surveillance or not?
Right.
And I know there's situations too. I can't think of a case off the top of my head like this, but I've heard, of situations where you get close to trial and there is surveillance video and the other side doesn't want to use it because the defense doesn't want to use it because it's actually either shows nothing or it actually helps the plaintiff side. And then, if you're doing discovery right and you're doing the right things, you can try to still force them to give it to you, right? Like they got the video and they don't want to use it and they're trying to kind of hide it from you. And, it doesn't always work, but I know there have been times where you can force them to give it to you. And in that situation, it really kind of backfires because a lot of times, that kind of a situation, the videos are basically just showing this person struggling through life,
right?
And it's like, oh, great, you kind of, gave me a nice day in the life video of my clients struggling through their everyday life.
Right. That's true. And, it really backfires on them in a situation like that where you get the video and you see some things on there and you're like, I'm going to use this in my case in chief.
That's what I'm saying.
And then you bring in the investigator and you put them on the stand and you say, what did you see my client going through? And, they have to say all the good stuff that's on the video that works to our benefit.
Right.
When they're actually had been paid by the defense.
Right.
And there are situations when we hire private investigators as well.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about dram shop cases, liquor liability cases on this podcast in the past. And that's one type of case where we typically will hire a private investigator just because it's so fact intensive,
Right.
and there's so many stories or so many versions of the facts and what this person saw, what that person saw, the relationship that a person had with the individual that we're trying to get information on. And we'll send a private investigator out to try to get recorded statements or do interviews of witnesses.
Right. Yeah, no, it can be super helpful for sure. And those kind of, lots of different kinds of cases, but especially like those because, I think number one, a lot of times because what we're basically talking about is trying to go out and interview witnesses and get statements from
Sure.
people, right? And to try to get all the information. And I think a lot of times people get approached by an attorney They kind of maybe get a little nervous, they clam up, they don't really necessarily want to talk, right? And so a lot of times I feel like it's easier with the private investigator. They're typically pretty good, talkers in terms of, being able to get people to talk to them and not be intimidating or scare them away. And so it's helpful from that perspective. And it's also helpful in terms of, and this is kind of a technical legal thing, but, if we're the attorneys in the case, we can't be a witness in the case, right? And so if I go talk to somebody, I talk to a witness, and the witness tells me information, and later on we're at trial, and the witness is saying something different, I can't get up on the witness stand and say, oh, well, he told me this and that, because, I could, but then I can't be the attorney in the case anymore, because now I made myself a witness in the case, right?
Right.
And so that's why it's also helpful to use the investigators to avoid that kind of a situation.
Yeah, and hopefully they get recorded statements, so,
Right.
There's flip-flopping on testimony closer to trial, you can bring in the recorded statement. And then, as far as us asking questions to the individuals themselves, we can get attacked for that from the defense because, obviously we can ask leading questions and try to lead them down a road to try to get them to say what we want them to say.
Right.
Whereas a private investigator doesn't really have that training, so to speak. So, they're just trying to get the facts.
Right.
And it can be painted as a situation where we're, oh, well, the attorney went out there and asked questions, and wouldn't you know, they gave them all the information that they needed.
They got the answers they wanted.
Yeah, they got all the answers they wanted.
Yeah, exactly. No, for sure. And a lot of the times I think certainly in my experience, some of the better private investigators were like former law enforcement,
Right.
detectives or something like that.
Right. So.
No matter your injury, Nonni Homola is here to help you recover. Visit noho.law today.